Hello, so it's a Poetry Thursday. A Poetry Thursday that's happening during June on the Range. So here's Dr. Jennie to read a poem with a Western, albeit Australian, theme.
Yep. Hello, everybody. Hello. Yes, so last year around this time, I read a very famous poem by an Australian poet called Banjo Paterson, late 19th century writer. Really famous poem called The Man from Snowy River. So I thought I'd follow up with another of Banjo Paterson's poems, and this is a really famous poem of his called Clancy of the Overflow. I had written him a letter which I had, for want of better knowledge, sent to where I met him down the Lachlan years ago. He was shearing when I knew him, so I sent the letter to him just on spec, addressed as follows: Clancy of the Overflow. And an answer came directed in a writing unexpected, and I think the same was written with a thumbnail dipped in tar. 'Twas his shearing mate who wrote it, and verbatim I will quote it. Clancy's gone to Queensland droving, and we don't know where he are. In my wild erratic fancy, visions came to me of Clancy gone a-droving down the Cooper, where the western drovers go. As the stock are slowly stringing, Clancy rides behind them singing, for a driver's life has pleasures that the townsfolk never know. And the bush hath friends to meet him, and their kindly voices greet him in the murmur of the breezes and the river on its bars, and he sees the vision splendid of the sunlit plains extended, and at night the wondrous glory of the everlasting stars. I am sitting in my dingy little office, where a stingy ray of sunlight struggles feebly down between the houses tall, and the fetid air and gritty of the dusty, dirty city, through the open window floating, spreads its foulness over all, and in place of lowing cattle, I can hear the fiendish rattle of the tramways and the buses making hurry down the street, and the language uninviting of the gutter children fighting comes fitfully and faintly through the ceaseless tramp of feet. And the hurrying people daunt me, and their pallid faces haunt me, as they shoulder one another in their rush and nervous haste, with their eager eyes and greedy, and their stunted forms and weedy. For townsfolk have no time to grow, they have no time to waste. And I somehow rather fancy that I'd like to change with Clancy, like to take a turn at droving where the seasons come and go, while he faced the round eternal of the cash book and the journal. But I doubt he'd suit the office, Clancy of the Overflow.
Awesome.
Yeehaw!
That's great. So it's literally a sequel to Man from Snowy River, yeah? Because Clancy's in that.
Clancy of the Overflow has a part, a named part in Man from Snowy River. I think the Man from Snowy River summons him to be an important part of the people trying to, the men trying to catch the horse that's got loose, which is what the Man from Snowy River's about. Right. But yeah, Clancy of the Overflow gets mentioned apparently in several Banjo Paterson poems. Nice. He's like a recurring character.
Yeah. So this one's from 1889, and like Man from Snowy River, it was in a newspaper, the Bulletin, and it's also really famous, I think. Yeah, I almost prefer this one, actually.
Do you?
Probably because it hasn't got so much of a story to tell.
Oh, interesting.
But, it's quite a simple idea, and I think it's really clearly expressed. It's quite poignant and relatable, but a lot of the readers probably are more like the guy in the office than they are like Clancy.
Yeah. I mean, it's very romanticised view of what the drover's life is like. But yeah, probably 1 in 10 of the men folk of the city yearn for that life, or think they do.
Well, hence the popularity of all kinds of frontier fiction, whether it's American westerns or Canadian style westerns
absolutely. Yeah, and that is the basis of June on the Range.
Yes, you can pigeonhole us that way if you want
pigeonholing you.
No, it's
with your racks of handguns.
It energises the most of the stories, definitely.
Yes,
especially what you might call classic westerns, I suppose.
Yeah. But I like it for the awful description, the awfulness of the description of the city.
Yeah,
hates.
Yeah.
Of the fiendish rattle of the tramways and the language uninviting of the gutter children fighting. Uninviting's probably a bit of an understatement.
Stop with that uninviting language, you children.
You naughty gutter children.
So the Overflow is not necessarily a real place, is that right?
Well, it's contested. He said...
Lulu's just come in.
Well...
Okay, proceed.
You know, you make me want to read a poem. Get my hand shaking. Stop it.
I wasn't doing anything.
Stop leading me off on a tangent.
There are no tangents, just
It's
enrichments.
True. It's true. Yes, it's contested as to whether it's a real place or not. Banjo Paterson himself said it wasn't, that it's just he named it that because that's the sort of things those kinds of places got called.
Okay.
And it's just a bush cattle station. But there actually is one in New South Wales called the Overflow.
Oh, right.
Near a town called Nymagee, something like that.
So that's where you go to have filth coming through your office window.
Yes. It gets mentioned in several of his poems. In fact, I think I might have confused 2 bits of information there. I think the Overflow gets a lot of mentions. I don't know whether Clancy gets more than 2 that we got. But I'll be able to tell you when I've read all of Banjo Paterson's poems.
You're going to get the book?
I don't know, I might.
Yeah, well, they're very enjoyable. They go back to the days of reading aloud, don't they?
Yeah, and they are nice to read. And they're not... I like them because he does things so they don't... To read aloud, don't have to be going because he does carryovers at the ends of lines and stuff like that. That mean you can read it in a much more I don't want to say prosy fashion because that's not what I mean, but you can read it in a way that lets you.
There's a bit of a naturalism to it, perhaps.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably right. Yeah.
So as the writer of this kind of thing, it's not just about hitting the rhyme scheme technically, it's also about making it read out loud.
So when you get lines like, well, the very first line, I had written him a letter, which I had, for want of better, that's where the line ends. Knowledge. But you kind of, to make it make sense, you kind of got to read it as I had written him a letter, which I had, for want of better knowledge, sent to where I met him down the Lachlan years ago, which makes it more interesting to read because you're not just a dum-de-dum-de-dumming.
Yeah.
You've got to read it through several times to work out where those things happen, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, okay.
Which, I mean, isn't an absolute essential. You can read it strictly to the rhyme scheme and the rhythm, and it's still a great poem. But it's they are just great pictures. They
Yeah.
give
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
great
yeah.
great head pictures.
Yes, I can see how it would catch on.
Yeah.
Because people would be reading it, they'd be reading it in the paper, they'd be reading it out loud, they'd be making it a party piece or doing it at events, and then it appears in books. And
Yeah, yeah. And it's pretty much, maybe not so much in Australia, certainly in the US. If you think back to that, Max Miller, not Max Miller the music hall comedian, Max Miller the food historian.
there'll never be another.
Was talking about the thing that killed off the cattle droving was the railroad being brought closer to where the cows actually were. So you didn't have to drive them all the way from Texas up to the east to get them on a train.
Yeah.
The trains came to them. So if this was written in, was it 1889?
Yeah.
You're coming up to the end of the golden age of cattle, of
so
cattle droving.
You've already got some nostalgia in there as well, maybe. Yeah.
It's a fading way of life.
Yeah, yeah.
And can I just put in a plug here for Tasting History with Max Miller, which is a fantastic YouTube channel, where a guy called Max Miller, who is very handsome and very engaging and very witty and lovely, will pick a historical food dish, once a week and talk about the history of it. And he talks about stuff that he's done programmes on what the Germans ate during the Second World War. He's done stuff on the history of beef stroganoff and stuff like that. And then he's done things about very ancient Persian dishes from like 4000 BC. And Tasting History with Max Miller. And he's a couple of weeks ago, he did what Cowboys ate.
Right. Yeah. We watched that one together. Yeah.
On the cattle droving.
And he makes a dish as well, and tells us what it tastes like. So you've got to see like a dish of beans made exactly as it would be on a wagon.
From Cookie's recipe book.
Yeah. So
and, apparently it's true that pretty much all the cook wagon cooks were actually called Cookie.
Good, yeah. Well, his channel certainly needs the support. It's only got about 10 million followers.
10 million followers. Yeah, but it's great. I just think if you like history,
it is fun, and obviously the cowboy one's relevant at the moment.
Yeah. If you don't watch anything else, just watch that because it's really interesting. The history of the cattle droving
and the medieval ones.
Medieval ones are fascinating.
There's probably stuff that's relevant to Jane Austen July as well.
There is. There's what did Jane Austen have for breakfast?
Well, I'll see your plug and raise you a extra plug for Ghost Readers in the Sky, one of my co-host colleagues who's done a lot of cowboy poems on his channel.
Hurrah!
Including a reading of Man from Snowy River, actually. So
Good.
You can hear Jennie read it, you can hear Ghost Readers read it.
The more readings there are of the Man from Snowy River, the more good comes into the world. No, it's true. Because it's just like, I don't know, it's got...
it's Coles to Newcastle in Australia.
Oh,
but
sure.
There are other countries.
Yeah.
In the world,
but it's just
not so well known.
It's full of joie de vivre.
Yeah,
it's true. Just bounces you along. It's fantastic. This one's a bit grumpy. In its way. But it's still got a bit of that. It's got that. It's more yearning than bouncy.
Yeah.
It's more.
Yeah, well, that's how we all feel
in
our little offices.
It is in our dirty, dingy offices.
Probably time to wind up. Do you want to say goodbye to the partners out there?
All right, little partners, I'm saying cheerio, mind how you go. Keep out of the Oss Road. Because you don't want to get trampled
Or
to death.
Indios Road.
Yeah, keep out the cow road.
Okay, bye.
Try a bit. Love ya.